do, right? And today I'm going to be talking about how we should be looking at integrating GIS within IT systems. Now, my presentation is going to take a quick look at the GIS and the IT industry, the convergence of the two today. We'll look at the diversity of the applications, and then we'll take one quick case study. I'm going to take you back in history a little bit. If we look back at the 1990s, the IT industry or the IT people were seen as the people who fix computers. My machine is not working, I call the IT people. My monitor is not working, I call the IT people. The network is not working, I call the IT people. So they were sort of known as the plumbing folks, okay? And if I look at the GIS industry in the 1990s, we were seen as the map makers, okay? We were seen as the guys who create beautiful looking maps. That's what we did. Anytime anybody needed a map, they would come to us as the GIS professionals. So that's back in the 1990s, okay? Now let's fast forward a couple of decades, a little bit more than that, and let's look at where IT is today. IT today within an organization is very, very strategic, okay? Typically, the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, has got a seat on the executive management team. IT is seen as being very, very strategic within an organization. Let's look at GIS. GIS is still the domain of the mapping folks. When we look at GIS people, do we get a seat on the executive management team? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Is GIS seen as being as strategic as IT? I'm not quite sure, okay? We are still seen, I'm a GIS professional, and I'm still seen as somebody who produces a map, okay? Now, today, my talk is about how do we make GIS more strategic? How do we start getting GIS at the forefront of all decision-making processes? How do we make GIS part and parcel of other systems that exist within an organization that allows decision makers to be able to make the right decision at the right time? So at the end of the day, what I'm looking to do is saying that if we want GIS to be strategic, we need to be able to go beyond just making pretty maps. We need to be able to provide spatial logic which allows decision makers to be able to make decisions based on the data that we present. We need to be able to make sure that we are able to help decision makers answer questions that they would not be able to otherwise be able to answer without the data that we produce and the data that we present. And all of this, of course, needs to be met by making sure that we respect the security infrastructure that's established within an organization. Now, if I look at for the past 10 years, okay, with the back end pretty well being taken care of and the internet becoming sort of the predominant delivery mechanism, the focus now goes to technologies that help make decisions. So if I look at the MIS world, I'm able to query and produce reports, but more with tabular data. If I look at the business intelligence world, okay, it provides me with the ability to be able to slice and dice the data the way I wish and be able to present it in a manner that people can understand through charts and tables and so forth. And if I look at GIS technology, it allows me to be able to analyze spatial relationships, okay, between the various different data sets. The need for the day really is to be able to bring these technologies together. So here I am as a customer. I would like to be able to have one window through which I am able to bring all of these different data sets together, okay, and provide that access to my user. So if I go back here, I can see that with GIS, BI, and MIS systems, and then linking it together with other data providers such as Google, such as Microsoft and others, okay, ESRI, I'm able to provide all of this information to the customer to be able to make a decision. I'm going to take one quick case study. If you take a look here, those of us who have been to Dubai, you will see these toll roads, okay? We've got SALIC there, okay? And with SALIC, every time a car goes by, we collect a lot of information. We collect the information such as what was the gate that you went through, what was the route, the direction, your plate number, what date it was, time, and the speed with which you went through. Every time you go through SALIC, that information is collected. And at one SALIC station, there are about 250,000 transactions that take place in a day. That is what big data is all about. So 250,000 transactions at one SALIC gate. If I take another system, every time you get to a traffic light, you either make a right turn, you make a left turn, or you go straight. Some of us, of course, make U-turns. Okay? Now, every time you're doing that, there are sensors there that are keeping track of what you're doing. You made a right turn, left turn, you went straight. That information is stored in a system, and then it'll get analyzed later on. AVM systems, your buses, your trains, and so forth, all that information, what time did it come, what time was it supposed to come, what time did it actually come, information is gathered. Every time somebody goes through a train, for example, you enter a gate, that information is captured. And there is a lot of information that is captured every time somebody enters a train station. Same with parking stations. So the idea here is that there are so many different systems within an organization that bring all of this data together, and the biggest challenge that you have is how do you make this data available to the people in a manner that they can understand, in a manner that they can decipher, analyze, and be able to make decisions. So what you're looking at here is the convergence of three different technologies: IT-based systems, MIS systems, business intelligence, and GIS. And I would even add, many of you have heard throughout the day today as well as yesterday, what big data is all about. Big data, think of big data as being 3 V's, okay? 3 V's standing for variety, velocity, and volume. So every time you're going through a SALIC, okay, there's a variety of data that's being collected. It's coming in very, very fast because as cars are moving, every time it's moving, you're getting the velocity of data, okay, and there's a tremendous amount of volume. So all of these different systems that you see at the bottom, the challenge is how do you get that data out in a manner that people can understand. So you can see here, for example, I've got some KPIs, okay? So this is your typical business intelligence tool. You're seeing the KPIs. I can see here that there's one little red bar over here. That's where the problem is. I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but in this particular case, it's congestion is where the problem is. So in Dubai, as you know, a lot of traffic, congestion is a big problem. So if I'm a manager, I want to look at that as to what exactly is the issue. I can click on that, I can start figuring out exactly where the congestion is. And you can see here that I've integrated GIS, MIS, and BI data all together, and I can keep drilling in. And as I drill in, I'm starting to see my map along with my charts. I can start analyzing that on this particular road, okay, what are the times when we are having problems? 6 o'clock in the morning till about 8 o'clock in the morning, and so forth. So there is a tremendous amount of data that is being collected on the road. That data needs to be analyzed and being presented in a manner that people can understand, and you can see here that GIS plays a very strategic role. So at the end of the day, there's lots of data coming in. All this data needs to be organized and then presented to the user. So this was the example that I took within the transportation industry. And the whole idea here is that GIS is not just a tool in this particular scenario to prepare beautiful maps. GIS here plays a very, very strategic role in being able to answer questions that an executive would have. So these are all the same points that I brought in earlier. I'm going to show you here, for example, here is Ministry of Transportation in Canada, in Ontario. You've got the executive management team, and they wanted to see an operational dashboard. So we go through the process of basically figuring out what are their strategic goals, okay? What are their operational goals? What are their operating and capital expenses, okay? What are their capital assets, which are mainly the roads? And then we start figuring out how do we present that in a form that they can understand vis-a-vis KPIs, vis-a-vis what their goals are, where they are today, where they want to be, and then you prepare charts like this. So this is an operational dashboard, and what you're able to see here, I can do different scenarios. If I do nothing over the next 5 years, what will happen? If I start doing funding scenario 1, what happens? Funding scenario 2, what happens? And so forth. And here, I can even see it on a map. So I can come in here, do nothing, this is what happens. Funding scenario A, if I spend this kind of money, this is what will happen. If I spend this kind of money, I'll see what will happen, okay? So in the same way as I showed you transportation, my last slide, a little bit about Rolta. Rolta is in the business. One of our businesses is to produce business intelligence tools, bringing together GIS and BI. We have a solution called OneView, and we primarily do work in the oil and gas industry, utilities, and transportation. Here I taken the example of transportation, but we have very, very similar case studies within the utility industry as well as the oil and gas industry. With that, thank you very much.